Hey, Cosmic Soul family. Ella Ivy here with Lives in Astrology. And I wanted to pop on here and share some thoughts, reflections I was having as we were approaching this new moon in Virgo on the 23rd. We're also approaching eclipse season. And so when you study eclipses historically, what eclipses mean, it means things are being taken away. Historically, the sun rules leadership, rules the king mentality. And with this eclipse season, especially happening in Virgo, it's authority over our own processes, right? Our own thoughts, because Virgo is ruled by Mercury, which is the mind. And Virgo is an earth sign. So it also rules the body, our habits, our health practices, our routines, things we do every day, our addictions, uh, whether for right or wrong, good or bad, the things you do daily, either they're serving you and they're helping you be the best version of yourself, or they're depleting you. And you're living from old programming and old consciousness thought patterns, probably inherited from ancestors, right? So as I was sitting here contemplating the energies, especially since, excuse me, I've been working with my own health issues, right? Just really conquering mold and mildew and certain energies around me, working with essential oils, right, to purify my system, purify my thoughts. And in this purification process, I'm realizing, especially after this full moon we just had in Aquarius, all the ways I was giving my power away and where I was indoctrinated and ingrained to give my power away and not even realizing it. So how does that show up? What does that look like? Well, I can only tell you from my experience what's been coming up for me. And I know it's kind of a little random thought pattern, but it'll make sense as we're talking about these energies. Is that for a lot of us, we grew up with fairy tales, right? Either I'm thinking of the Brothers Grimm, I'm thinking of Disney Channel movies, because I was a latching key child. I'm a Gen Xer, so I was raised by the television, basically. My parents, that were both working at the time, and so when I would come home, excuse me, I'd be put in front of a television, or I'd immediately turn on the TV, right? Because that was my, not to be bored. Again, nobody was home, so that was my entertainment. And so growing up with all these programs, right? And I used to love Disney. I used to love fairy tale movies. I actually had a fairy tale book when I was 3 or 4, and I used to skim through it all the time. I was just obsessed with, you know, and I still am. I still love fantasy and sci-fi, and that's just my genre, right? I've got Scorpio, and I got a lot of stuff in the 12th house astrologically, so it's like fantasy, it's things that are unseen, a lot of archetypes, metaphors. And so I really was tied into, at that point in my life, at a young age, I would say between 3 and 7 years old. And by the way, that's when we're the most programmable. Most kids are in what's called a theta brainwave state until the age of 7. You can study Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he talks about this. A lot of our subconscious programming happens between the age of 0 and 7. And so what was coming up for me in this sort of purging energy, especially as we're approaching this eclipse season in Virgo, and what needs to leave, what's being illuminated, what needs to leave, is this excessive people pleasing. And growing up with a very volatile mother or parents, I should say both of them, in a way to counterbalance my perceived mom's energy or negative energy, right? I wanted to be the good girl, right? So I really identified with the Cinderella complex, right? Having these mean, evil sisters, and then yet being the good girl, and being wanting to attract the prince who just saw the best in her, and ended up, coming and saving her, and the whole archetype of Cinderella. And you guys are, I'm sure everybody here that's watching this is familiar with that story. So what was coming up for me today is I've been in this purge mode, right? Just cleaning up my diet, cleaning up my environment, working with essential oils more, tapping, grounding, all the things that we've been told to do that helps, which it really does help to do these things, because it is a clearing out process. And I didn't realize how indoctrinated and ingrained that programming of the Cinderella complex was still permeating my field, right? And so even now, as I'm moving forward and moving toward entrepreneurship and learning to build my business and learning to build astrology, there was these subtle servitude energies that I was still embodying because I was still into this Cinderella complex energy. And maybe you guys want to put in the comments if you guys can relate, if you ever watched Cinderella, or you're familiar with the archetype, and how that could be playing out in your everyday life, in how you show up in the world. Because we all have, the zodiacal chart shows us where everybody has these archetypical energies within us, right? And so the sixth house is where we serve, where we are in service to other people, to the collective energy, right? It's our daily routines, how we show up for the other, what we do on the daily. And so I didn't realize that there was this insidious subconscious Cinderella complex still permeating, where I still had this, I saw myself as the victim, right? As Cinderella, as woe is me. And I have these mean sisters around me, or I have these people that are jealous of me, and I don't want to, rock the boat too much of my creations, or be too much, or show up too loud, or too authentic, because I was still in this servitude. I still had this energy of, being the good girl, right? And then having these mean sisters around. And again, I go back to childhood, and a lot of us can relate to, having, mean people around. It's just, again, all is self. So it's just versions of us that are just watching for whatever reason. And so this is, again, as I'm kind of coming around, this will make sense as terms of astrology, because a lot of us have these archetypical energies we learn from childhood, whatever we most identified with. So maybe just take a moment to pause to say, what was your favorite childhood storyline, whether it's Cinderella or Sleeping Beauty, or whatever the case may be, Little Red Riding Hood. I'm just thinking of like these childhood stories, and how they're still showing up into our subconscious, and how that's influencing how we show up on the daily to other people, to our work and service to others. And how we, again, that insidious energy of not feeling worthy, of being in this servitude energy where, basically other people get to live in the big house and live a certain way, but, being good means that you're humble and you're poor. But don't worry, because one day your prince will find you, and he will see you. He'll see right through your tattered clothes, and he'll see your beauty, and he'll be enamored of you because of your intellect. And it doesn't matter, all the stories. Again, sorry guys, still, as I'm learning to transmit the energy, I'm like speaking my truth, I start coughing. Anyway, so this was coming up for me to really look at, especially because this eclipse season is really bringing things up to light that had possibly been hidden in the subconscious, that has been activating and dictating our behaviors and how we show up in the world, right? And so, and again, looking at my own astrology, I've got my progressed Mars in Aries, which is my fifth house. And that means, so Aries, I want to initiate something. I want to begin something, right? Having the courage. But I've also got Chiron in Aries, which is the wounds of the child, right? Not feeling worthy to be the I am, right? I am creative. I am powerful. I am sovereign, right? So there's been this insidious subconscious programming within me that's been secretly looking for my prince, that's been looking for that savior mentality to save me, to save me from the mean, evil sisters, and my woes in life and my poverty. And if I could only be beautiful and pure and kind and generous, then one day my prince will see me and fall in love with me, and gather my slipper, and it's this whole symbology. When you really do the deep dive of it, it's, again, I feel like everything can be good or bad, but for me this has been showing up in the negative, because there's also this polarizing effect with my astrology saying, hey, you are the boss. Not only are you the queen, but you're the king. You have the potential inside of you, not only to be that queen, that inner queen, but you're also the inner king who can provide, and who has the castle, and who has all the aptitudes of power, right? So again, this also gets tied to our relationship of power, which also is very Plutonian, right? Pluto and Aquarius. And so we're moving all away psychically and subconsciously from this kingship, right? From serving a king and being saved by this king energy, And I feel a lot of that was also tied and taught by religion, right? The Lord of the land, right? Worshiping the Lord or the landlord, right? This is all, again, look at the language, look at the etymology. And so I was really like purging this out of me. It's almost like, if you guys have been doing your cleanses and realizing there's symptoms, there's almost like energy symptoms that have been depleting and draining you because of the way you've been thinking about things. And so in meditation today, why I was called to pop on here is because I know a lot of us are going through this process of regridding our subconscious programmings from childhood and really getting into the depths of how these archetypes have been playing themselves out and keeping us lower, right? Not allowing us to step into our sovereignty, keep looking outside of ourselves for other positions of power, people's approval, right? Of a man's attention because he thinks I'm beautiful, or somebody outside of myself that gives me my worth, right? That loves me because, for whatever reason, these storylines have kept us minimized and small. And so when I was doing my deep dive and I was asking my ancestors, because I don't really pray outside of myself anymore, because if you follow this channel, we come from all this self. So I'm just an aspect of my ancestors. My ancestors are an aspect of me. I don't pray to the Lord of the land anymore. I don't pray to any outside God force or angels or angelic realms. It's just where I'm at in my consciousness, because I'm really having to learn sovereignty and embody sovereignty 100%. And if we all are part of this field of quantum energy field that they talk about, then there is no separation on certain energetic fields. It's just the illusion of separation. And so, it's almost like this delusional aspect of humanity that we've all been under, very Piscean, right? We just came from the age of Pisces, moving into the age of Aquarius. And so a lot of these illusions are falling away, this delusional aspect. They even say that when you're working with ChatGPT, right? It becomes delusional that the answers are not correct because it's just sort of streaming consciousness that's just lingering around that doesn't have coherence. And so as we are becoming more coherent because of our daily practices, and again, this is all tied to Virgo, which is opposite Pisces in the zodiacal wheel, it's how do we get out of this sort of fantasy, delusional, escapist, which would be, I would say, the disagreeable aspects of Pisces, and move into the more harmonious aspects of Pisces, where we are more creative and we are artistic and we are connected to the unity consciousness and to the field of oneness in a purified way, Virgo. So we've got to purify our essence, purify our thoughts, purify our subconscious programs that have been keeping us in this lowered caste system of having the Lord of the land above us, whether it's through kingship or royalty, and then stepping into our own royal power, realizing through the age of Aquarius that no, we are the royalty, that it is in the human consciousness that we are connected to everything and all things. So there is no separation in that anymore. It's choosing to become sovereign and not looking for approval outside of ourselves. The approval is if you are in service and coming from your heart and being your authentic self. Then if it triggers somebody else, then that's not your business. That's for them to work through and the healing that they need to do. You just need to show up you, authentically pure you, right? And so I think of also too, again, going into the archetypes, I love the new Disney shows that are coming out. Whatever you think about Disney, I know we all have this thing about Disney, and again, there's positive and negative in all of it. So how you use it, right? A hammer, you can build a house with a hammer, you can hit somebody over the head with a hammer. It's just a tool. So these programs, these things that are permeating, they're tools. And it's if you become more aware of what's actually being said, then you can harness the tools and really use it as a tool of empowerment. Again, the hammer can create or it can destroy. So I'm taking these archetypical energies of like the Disney movies, right? And I'm upgrading within my own psychology. So during this process now, between now and this upcoming new moon in Virgo, which is happening, we're actually having a double new moon in Virgo, and it's called a blue moon because it's rare that there's two new moons in the same sign within a moon cycle. And so there's going to be two new moons in Virgo starting on August 23rd is the first one, and then September 22nd or 21st, depending on your time zone, is where the second new moon is going to be happening. So this to me is like a doubling down of really getting into the psychology and the psychosis of early programming, and where we get to choose, right? Because if you don't understand what's going on in the inner realms of self, then you're going to be evicted into it. Then you're going to be swept away by the tides of what's happening in the undercurrents of your own unconscious thought programs. But if you can consciously say, I'm going to bring those up to light, and I'm willing to look at these things, I'm willing to go back in childhood and see where these programs came from, how they originated, having forgiveness, having grace for the whole process. And then you get to choose which new program you want to embody. And I still love Disney. I still love uh, the Disney shows, and I still love, fairy tales, right? It's still part of my entertainment. But now I get to choose. I say, wait a minute, it doesn't serve me anymore to be Cinderella. That sounds like excuse my language, but that's kind of bullshit now. I don't want to be Cinderella. Oh, who do I want to be? Who do I want to emulate? Who is more empowered? Who is more aligned with who I am now in this now time moment? And as I'm stepping into my own inner authority and tapping into my own power, what character or what am I seeing projected out in the reality do I most resonate with now? Not when I was between the ages of 0 and 7, right? So as I've been studying this, and I've been saying this for a long time, and those of you who know me personally, I'm not all about love and light. I love to be spiritual, and spirituality has been a big part of my practice. I got a lot of Scorpio on my chart. So Scorpio rules the hidden underworld, and I've never been in the like kumbaya and love and light and let's everybody just dance and get along, and I'm a light worker. And I've always kind of been sitting in the background, and I've always felt like the character of Maleficent in Disney, right? The Disney, I guess she's like the fairy queen who is seen as a little bit of a darker persona because she can't be controlled, she can't be manipulated. She sees what's going on in the forest and she calls bullshit. She's the protector, right? So just knowing my own self, doing my own deep dive again, inner gnosis, know thyself. I'm a 9 energy. I was born on a 9 day that's ruled by Mars. I'm also a daughter of Pluto and Scorpio, so I know that's deep transformation and action. I was born on a Saturday, which is very Saturnian, very structure, right? So I call this the layering effect. When you really get into not only your astrology, but your gene keys, your enneagrams, your numerology, right? These are things that are all pointing to you and to the archetypes that you've chosen for yourself in this incarnation, and really learning to embody the aspect that you've come here to be in this particular, I'd say, blueprint, right? And how we have grown, and perhaps where we were in past lives, past incarnations, past blueprint personas, if you will, and where we've come to evolve and shift and change. Because that's all this is about evolution and shifting and changing and being the higher octave of ourselves, right? So in this higher octave persona, I'm coming out of this whole Cinderella complex and I'm moving in more into the Maleficent, right? And who was very misunderstood in this sort of archetypical energy. If you've ever watched that Disney movie Maleficent, I would highly recommend watching that, because if you would resonate with any of this. But this is an invitation, especially for women, as we're learning to be entrepreneurs, as we're learning to step into our power, as we're learning to become our own princes, right? Why do we need to look outside of ourselves to build a castle? We can build the castle within us. We are the womb creators, right? And this is not to separate masculine and feminine, because in this channel, feminine is more of the magnetic aspect instead of gender, and the masculine is more the electric, right? So becoming your own inner prince and princess, becoming your own inner queen and king, right? Merging that duality, that aspect within you, which is also Uranus and Gemini right now. And Uranus is the planet of change, of forward thinking, of innovation. And it's in Gemini, which rules duality, which rules both hemispheres of the brain. We have a right and a left hemisphere. And in this realm, everything is in duality. It's either day or night, masculine or feminine, light or dark, it's polarized. So how do we rectify that polarizing energy and come into the middle point? Buddha talked about that. It's the middle path, right? And the middle path has to do with this. There's a part of our brain called the corpus callosum that it's like a bridge. It bridges these two hemispheres of our brain, the masculine and the feminine. And so really learning to embody our own inner authority and becoming that archetype that most suits you now, maybe not the archetype that you came into with these inherited patterns or constructs from perhaps previous lives, right? So yeah, just really embodying the energy of who you are now at the age and the time you are now, which is why I highly also recommending you guys look at your progress relocated, because that also tells you in the birth charts rather, because it also tells you where you have evolved to in this now time moment based on the age you are and the location you are. So that's called the progress relocated chart. And if you guys want any of that information, you just reach out to me. I'd love to be able to share that with you. But and I think it's very profound when you can see, because your natal chart tells you the blueprint that you were born with, which also gives you an inclination as to the patterns that you were inherited or that you embodied in past lives. But now with the blueprint that you are based on the time and energy of where we are in this time and space, excuse me, then it's going to tell you what you're here to embody in the now. So again, just trying to keep it very simple in simple terms. For my own personal gnosis, I know that I'm moving from more of the Cinderella energy archetype and moving more into the Maleficent archetype, right? And feeling like I don't necessarily have to be understood by people or things. I just have to be in my truth. I have to be in my power. And even if that is somebody else's disagreeable aspects, or they disagree, or they find themselves, whatever energy projecting out in the reality, as if I'm showing up myself and authentic, then I'm willing to stand into my power and to be my authentic self, even if there's backlash, even if the feedback is negative. Because again, I'm evolving in my own archetypical energies, moving from the Cinderella complex, moving into more of the Maleficent, which is the protector. I think of like the white blood cells on the planet, right? Especially of those of us that are Mars ruled and have a lot of nines and scorpionic energy, which are transformers. I think of it like if we're the body, I see especially the Mars energy is very much like the protector, the warrior, right? So what protects you in the body? Your white blood cells. And if there's foreign invaders or foreign energies or entities or parasites or things that are going on in the body, then your white blood cell count's going to increase to protect yourself, right? To protect the organs and the systems within you. It's also very Virgo. So it's okay to have these elements and these energies within you. I think it's important, especially for women, to be your own king, to be your own queen. And we can evolve out of these archetypical stories if you choose to really see what's been lingering in the subconscious realms and what maybe these stories have been playing out that just no longer make sense with who you are now and where you're going. So yeah, if you were in that Cinderella archetype, right, ready to have a savior come and save you and a prince to come and save you on a white horse and all that jazz, hey, that's okay. It's just a story. But I know now, as I'm getting ready to level up and become my own king and queen, my own business entrepreneur, right, having the inner authority of my own current, which is power, which is basically, it's stepping into your power, because your current C is your current, it's your energy. And so where we have been giving away our life force energy and giving away our current, especially as women, this is the time for us to step into our divine powers, and not just women as the gender, but men and women in our magnetic, feminine, receptive, yet the most powerful aspect of ourselves. Because the feminine holds everything. It holds all of creation. Just think of like a womb, right? Everything comes from a womb. And that's something to really ponder on and really get into when you're doing these deep dives, especially when you're tuning into Gnosis, into Gnosticism. Everything comes from a womb. So has your womb, I would also say doing some womb healing, especially for those of us who are learning to step into our power and not only harness and receive our power, but to hold our power. Because we may have had energy leaks within our womb, right? Because of trauma and different things that have happened in childhood. And again, these subconscious beliefs that have been lingering around, that we might not have been able to hold our power in our womb space. Kashamara, thank you so much for asking to come into this live right now. I'm still learning to work with the live, but I would invite you in for future future conversations. Anybody that's really interested in this type of topic about empowerment, you know, really stepping from a place of inner authority and really being able to do the work to clear out these subconscious programmings that we all have been asunder, if you will, because again, that's the shadow of Pisces. And the shadow of Pisces would very much be about the delusional or the illusion, right? The false matrix. And those of you who know this language have been talking about this. There's a false overlay, a false light, if you will. And that's also been very much activated by substances, by certain, hallucinogenics, if you will. Because everything it's a chemistry game, right? Everything's about chemistry. And so that's what Pisces represents too. It's pharmaceuticals, big business, drugs. And so in a way, where have we been drugged by the collective energies, by what we're intaking, by what we're consuming, and not only in the physical, which is also very Virgo, right? It's like our healthcare. Look at our healthcare system, guys. We see that these things are deteriorating, and where there's been a lot of programs, people have been, I would say, hypnotized into believing certain things, especially because of early childhood and the way we've been fed, right? Look at sugar. Guys, I would deep dive into your own gnosis about the chemical of sugar and what that does to the body. And so, again, these are just invitations to really be able to look and see and activate your own cognitive dissonance and see where you have been programmed, because we all have been. It's not if we've been programmed, it's how we've been programmed. Are you willing to look at it honestly? Are you willing to forgive the process, because it's just where we were in our evolution, or we have possibly degenerated our own spiritual natures, because again, this has been a chemistry game, and whatever storyline you're attracting or that you agree with, that's going to be part of how you also project your energy. So perhaps going from a state of, this is what I've been told, is to wipe out everything. It's like start from zero. You know, it's like when you get a new phone, and because I just recently got a new phone in the retrograde, and it was a blank slate, right? There was nothing on the phone until I put the data or I put the programs onto my phone, and that's what I'm working with. And so I had to really, during this retrograde, especially Mercury retrograde, which is just going forward on the 13th, saying what new programs am I putting on my phone now? Maybe the old systems, the old apps, the applications that I don't work with, they need to be wiped away, because there's new technology, there's new data, there's new information, there's new programs that I want to work with, but I got to make space for it. So this is what these cleanses and these purges are about, especially in Virgo season, especially with this double new moon and this eclipse that's right in between this energy. It's going to be taken away anyway, guys. So it's just bringing conscious awareness to what's already leaving your systems, because we are part of divine intelligence, and the divine intelligence that knows how to grow the tree and that knows how to, clean the air and for the water to clean itself. I'm thinking of the earth and the seas. There's a natural process that's happening anyway. And as you start clearing these programs and getting rid of the debris that's been lingering since childhood, then you can really step into these natural, divine, intelligent frequencies that are already innately with you. And that's, working with the breath will teach you that. You don't have to tell the body to breathe, it just breathes. You don't have to tell your liver to cleanse or your heart to beat, it just does it for you. Excuse me. Again, I'm still doing a lot of cleaning out as I start speaking my truth. I notice a lot of mucus and things because I've been scared, right? Oh, don't speak your truth, because then you won't be liked, then you'll be attacked, right? Then you've got these evil sisters that'll do mean things to you if you step into your power. Don't be too beautiful, don't be too rich, right? Don't be too authentic, don't be too much. And so this is the patterning that we're all breaking out of. I think of the seed that's breaking out of the when you plant a seed, then it goes through this metamorphosis where it's got to open up and it's got to, the stem's got to rise. And this is what's happening. We're rising to the next octave of ourselves. We've got to break through these constructs, these old limiting belief patterns, and not only from our inner dialogue, but from what's being projected onto us as we start stepping into our authentic selves. So this is also too, the eclipse might be willing to show you where you need to release some relationships that have just kept you small, right? I think of like dynamics within work or personal relationships or family dynamics. where they're just used to you being a certain way, and gosh forbid you decide to break out of these patterns. Well, that's not in resonant with who they knew you to be. It's almost like they're projecting you and how they've always known you. And the minute you step out of that sequence of behavior, then you're going to really start getting some feedback and some backlash. And I'm here to tell you that that's part of the process of becoming your more authentic self, that it's okay, that anybody that's kept you small or made you feel less than, and that was okay with you being in that small state because they felt more powerful. And the moment you start stepping into your own power, boy, that's going to shift the dynamics and piss some people off. And I'm here to tell you it's okay. Be willing to piss some people off. Be willing to stand in your power. And that may mean being in isolation for a bit. Because I know it also, too, when I study the Tarot card, the Hermit is represented by Virgo. And the Hermit goes into Hermit mode, right? It's got to go into its own inner resources and gather that power within itself. I would also invite you to do some sort of womb healing, right? I have a whole story, and I'll do another live about this womb healing experience I had with this yoni egg. And oh my God, it was terrible. But it was also powerful, and it also did a lot of healing, right? So that'll be for another day, another live. But I'm here to tell you we're all on our path, and that the more healing and the more you're willing to confront your own inner shadows, because we are all connected, that you doing the work will help heal me. And the more that I keep doing my inner work, that will help heal you, right? We're all part of this collective field. So the healing is not in vain, and it's not in isolation. So what you do for self, you do for the other. And what you do for the other, you do for yourself. This is a collaborative, cooperative experience. We're moving more into that harmonic of the divine feminine. Less competition and one up. That no longer serves where we're going. That perhaps was where we were in an evolutionary stance, but we're evolving out of that. So this is just an invitation as this eclipse season is approaching, and you're being invited in to do the inner work and to possibly do some reprogramming, getting into your own alpha and theta states. I would also invite you to check out, doctors like Dr. Joe Dispenza or Greg Braden or even Bruce Lipton. I would even look at Robert Edward Grant, because he's really been promoting unity consciousness and oneness, that we're not healing in isolation. We're healing as a collective in the bigger versions of us. So keep speaking your truth. Keep showing up your authentic self. Allow yourself to step into your power. And if you need to change the archetypes of who you once were, like I'm no longer Cinderella. Again, respectfully, fuck Cinderella, dude. I ain't trying to be that chick no more. No, I know how to be in my power. And so who I'm most resonating right now is more of the Maleficent energy, which is more of, unapologetic power. And I might be demonized. I might be looked at for the spiritual community as, oh, well, she's not love and light. She's kind of dark. She's, yeah, because I'm light and dark. I'm both. And I honor both sides, right? And anytime I always say when I come to the party, I bring my light and my shadow. We all come to the party. It's not just going to be love and light. No, kumbaya. No, it's like, hey, I see some gaslighting going on over there. And you're calling yourself, spiritual, and you're trying to help. Well, own your shadow. And you owning your shadow will help me. It'll help me own my shadow, right? And so then we can all dance and play in this polarity game that we've all come here to play. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's not either or, it's and more. So when you can really embody and embrace your shadow, those darkened parts of you that you've kept separated, and even in this society has made it seem bad. Oh, don't be too much. Don't be too powerful now. Don't intimidate men. How many of us women have turned, oh, don't be too intelligent. Men don't like that. And make sure to be docile and make sure, fuck that, dude. I've never agreed with that, which is why I've been single on purpose for 20 years. Not saying I'm not calling in divine relationship, but I've got to get that developed relationship within myself first. And so this has been a lifelong journey for me, and it's a process. And I know that death is not what we think, so we're eternal beings. This is just a pit stop in the whole eternity game, so whatever. But this is where I'm at in this now moment. And I hope this resonates with anybody that's watching this live, either now or I'm going to be putting some, putting this back on my channel just for contemplation and reflection and realizing it's okay to own your shadow. It's okay to be in your dark because we need both. We need the contrast. It's not all about love and light, kumbaya. It's about stepping into your authentic self, and that might mean owning some of your shadow personas and personality characteristics, and that's okay. Actually, that's more than okay. So thank you guys for connecting to this channel. Thank you for being here live. I'm so grateful for this community, really, because I'm seeing so many creatives just putting themselves out here and being their authentic selves, and it's, again, giving me permission to really speak my truth, even on things that maybe can be hard to speak on. And I'm still learning the language on how to speak on it. But I mean, it's not going to be perfect. You know, I mean, look, I've been coughing and hacking and getting rid of all this gunk because there's been so much blocking. Again, I just wanted to be liked. I just wanted to be loved. I just wanted to be, you know, this Cinderella, this beautiful being that's great with the animals. And I am great with the animals. Believe me, I think I sometimes like animals more than I like humans. But again, that's my Maleficent energy. And I'm okay with it. Shit. Gotta have these healthy boundaries, man, because there's parasites out here that'll cling on to you if you don't know how to stand in your power and to have these boundaries, which is very much Saturn and Aries right now, next to Neptune and Aries. And that's also going retrograde. Both of those planets are retrograde, as well as Pluto. Pluto is our power planet. It's also retrograde. So from this point until February of, I believe February 20th of 2026, that's where it's going to be the exact conjunction of Aries and Neptune and Saturn going to be moving forward. We have like this period between now and 2026, 2027 even, to really get our shit together, to own your dark side, and to be unapologetic for it, just to witness it. Don't, what's the word? I'm not going to tell you what to do, but for me, I'm going to learn to love my shadow, because my shadow has a voice, just like my light has a voice. You know, the devil and the angel are all within you. All is self. It's all you. There is no outside enemy anymore. And so this is really embracing the anti-villain. The anti-villain is very much like I would say, the archetype of Batman, where he had a trauma happen to him. And so he became like this warrior, but had to go into the dark shadow of himself, right? Had to go into the inner caves of himself to become and emerge this sort of anti-villain, where he's not really the hero, but he's not the villain, and he doesn't put up with shit, but he accesses his power because he's a billionaire, so he knows how to harness his current and his energy, and he uses it for good in the way he sees good. And it's not always good, right? Sometimes you can see where he battles his own inner shadow, but ultimately he's here to be of service and to heal himself, to heal the trauma from his family when he witnessed his mom and dad get killed, and then all that shit went into his psychosis and psychology, and it came out. So this is also too, I would just invite you, when you start looking at movies, whether you're watching Disney movies or any kind of movies outside of you, there's always going to be a psycho-spiritual connection to what's really these characters are doing. So this is just an invitation too. I think of it as a form of meditation, to watch these movies from this perspective, again, this unity consciousness, and just invite you to explore these archetypes within you, and that it's okay to be the anti-hero, right? It's like, step into that anti-hero, anti-villain version of yourself and see what emerges. It might surprise yourself, and you might actually like to learn to love that version of you more, because it helps you stand into your power and to set those boundaries that maybe in childhood you never got to set, because we were ingrained to be of service and to be the good girl or the good boy, and to be kind, to be liked, to be safe. And all that's dissolving right now in front of our eyes. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining this conversation, for being a part of this dialogue. And there's going to be more of this type of conversation as we, again, start stepping into our true authentic power. And it's not always going to be an easy conversation to have, especially with self, but it's an important conversation to have. And especially for those of us who are having these conversations, that you just realize you're not alone, and that we're doing this together collectively. And I'm just so grateful to be a part of this and to incarnate right now during this time, this pivotal time of what we're all becoming. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining this conversation. So much love to you. And just know that there's be strong, because there's some of us out here that's doing the work, man. It's not the easy work. You got to shed, you got to release, you got to purge, you got to detox. So let these upcoming new moons, double new moons in Virgo help you with that. Ground it in. Be in that routine of self-love, loving your shadow. Love yourself at the times even when you don't like yourself. And that's okay too. Remember, we are the villains and the heroes. We get to choose. It's not either or. It's and more. I'd say varying degrees of it. All right, guys. I'll talk to you next time in this live whenever things want to get channeled. So much love to you. Thank you so much for being here.